What does it take to bring a beloved Brazilian brand into the heart of the American market and make it thrive? Today in New York City, I'm joined by Jessica Alsing. She's the Chief Digital Officer at Grendene Global Brands, the powerhouse behind labels like Melissa, Ipanema, and Ryder. Jessica brings decades of experience in digital commerce, and under her leadership with companies like Crocs, West Elm, and Gap, Grendene has seen 12 times growth in the US, turned up its direct-to-consumer game, and pulled off collaborations that rival some of the biggest names in fashion. We talk about how to scale in such a competitive market, what she's learned about leadership. Here's Paula Macadi, and this is episode 84 of my show in partnership with Shoptalk Phone. Welcome to OFFBounds. Jessica, welcome to OFFBounds. It's a pleasure to be here in New York with you.
Amazing. Thank you so much for having me. I'm a big fan of your show.
Thank you. And I'm a big fan of the brand you work for. Probably a lot of people are not familiar with Melissa, but I grew up with Melissa. Why don't you tell us what Grendene is and what Melissa is so everybody's acquainted?
Sure. So Melissa is a brand that's really rooted in art, design, and fashion. It was born in 1979, and it's really based on fisherman sandals in the French Riviera. So it's a very beautiful brand. It's been around for nearly 50 years, and it is a household name in Brazil. I think, meeting you and meeting any Brazilian, this is a core memory of theirs. They absolutely love Melissa. It's a beloved brand, and it's one of the first brands that have done an enormous amount of collaborations. So with very iconic designers. So whether that's Jean-Paul Gaultier, Vivienne Westwood, more recently the Y Project or Telfar or Diesel. It's really a brand that just brings out art in fashion and design. And Grendene is the parent company, and they have other brands like Ryder and Ipanema, which are terrific brands as well. And I think what's very special about Grendene, it's a vertical manufacturer. It's all of the manufacturing is done in Brazil. Everything is done within the manufacturing facility. So that includes creating the PVC that the product is made from. It's injection molding all of the product as well. And it's a closed loop manufacturing process, meaning that any scraps out of the manufacturing process go back in to make more shoes. So it's incredibly sustainable. It has one of the lowest, if not the lowest, carbon footprints in the industry. And people have worked there for 40, 50 years, And so what I think so exciting about the brand and the manufacturing are the shoes that you may have worn when you were a little kid. You could be getting shoes that were made by the same person. And that's something that's so wonderful in manufacturing when you really know who's making the product and you can really get behind it. So, I'm in love with the brands. And I think what they do is so special.
Our audience won't relate to that. Some will, but as a Brazilian that I grew up wearing Melissas, there's something about the smell of the brand. I have a core memory of the smell of the brand in my childhood, like it's something so special. I love it.
It's the tutti frutti smell, and everyone feels like it's a core memory from Brazil. It's non-toxic, and it's really supposed to emote something wonderful that it's a Melissa product when it has that smell. So it's something that we really love about the product and, about the brand.
And you are taking care of the digital growth of the brand here in the US, and you got insane numbers.
Yes.
We are talking about 12 times growth. What would be the secrets of cracking into the American market?
I'm not sure if there's any big secrets.
However, it's hard.
It isn't always easy, but I think with taking a brand that's so beloved in Brazil and that is so cool, it's such a fantastic brand. It was really about building a strategy. Like, how do we build the awareness of Melissa in the American market? Really finding the right team, an incredible team to really drive that strategy and executing that strategy overall. And it's really about connecting with the consumer. So the wonderful thing about Melissa is that there's already a number of ambassadors, even in the US. It has a cult following. People who know the brand really love the brand. And what we tried to do is utilize that community, build that community, and really help drive awareness in the business. So that's something that we've been really focused on.
Something more like in the social channels or engage in a loyalty program? How?
All of those things. So a loyalty program is one of those. We have a strong loyalty program where that exploded initially when we launched it. We also have an ambassador program where fans can sign up to be an ambassador for Melissa, and that has exploded immediately. I think within the first couple of weeks, we had over 200 ambassadors applying with very little awareness of the brand, and some of these were even relatively famous, or well-known ambassadors, so we were really excited about that. But the community—
I could be an ambassador.
I sign up, girl. I'm very excited. Yeah, that would be amazing.
Thinking about Grendene, that we'll have a lot of Brazilians working with you, that you'll be a Brazilian. What drove you to accept this challenge? Because you have an interesting background. You worked at Crocs. Mm-hmm. So you have some shoe understanding too. Like, what was the main reason you joined Melissa?
I love growing brands. So I started my career when I was younger at The Gap, and then I moved to the emerging brands of Williams-Sonoma. So really growing brands like West Elm and Williams-Sonoma Home. And I really found my love of growing brands. Then at Crocs, we did a phenomenal job of making that product that everyone was aware of relevant across, our markets across the globe. And I was responsible for the international markets in EMEA and Asia. I think for me, we did such a fabulous job. The numbers were staggering and the growth was staggering. It was just time for a new challenge. I had been there for 10 years. I had known Melissa, and I was introduced to it in Singapore. There was a store in Singapore. I loved the product, and it was something I was really excited to take on, to grow this brand internationally outside of Latin America for Grendene and for Melissa.
So you lived in Singapore. You told me you lived in Netherlands. You're
Yes.
a pretty global professional.
Yeah, I'd like to think so. I really love working around the world. I love other cultures. I love other markets. I love how sophisticated, South Korea is, and, how interesting China is. I think technology continues to leapfrog across the world. And I'm a very intellectually curious person, so I really enjoy working globally.
Yeah, curiosity has been a quality that we hear a lot here from the leaders that come. So I think this is one of the core skills or soft skills that people in powerful positions have nowadays.
Oh, that's great to know.
You're growing so many brands, especially in the digital market. Digital is changing a lot, right? Like, what have you learned about the US consumers compared to the other markets that you worked on?
It's so important to simplify our thinking. We overdrive complexity in international markets. So what I think is really interesting is globally, we're all more alike from consumer behaviors than we think. And there is differences that we have to understand as well. So it's just figuring out what's important in terms of those differences. Because if you're trying to, drive a global brand, there has to be similarities, whether that be across the assortment, the messaging, the communications, sort of the way that you show up on social channels, and even the consumer. I think that there's a value in keeping those really clear, where something's globally led, but regionally relevant. So I think really defining what's important at a local level versus what is really important to the core aspects of the brand, I think is a really important aspect to that.
And what is really important for the US market, like for these locations?
I think the US market is making an impact. There's so many consumer goods out there really vying for the attention of the consumer. So it's really having a strong story. It's really being incredibly authentic. It's really driving a community, I think, is important. I had a conversation with a friend not long ago, and all of the marketing that's really being done, brand marketing that's being done across a number of brands, the playbook has become very similar. It's, the same playbook across, there's not a ton of creativity. So I think what's exciting to us is really looking to the community to bring the creativity of the brand and just amplifying that. So that's generally what, I try to focus on in my role, and really to try to bring the awareness to, Melissa across the globe.
Yeah, and how does storytelling play a role in building a direct-to-consumer story for your customers?
Storytelling is everything. And I think that's the toughest part with Melissa is that there's such a wonderful story to tell, whether that be the manufacturing, that it's almost a century, half a century old, that it's rooted in art and design, that there's so many collaborators who are iconic that work with Melissa.
And the products are beautiful.
And the products are beautiful. Yeah. And it's very difficult to tell that story when someone's scrolling with their thumb for, milliseconds. So that's something that we're really continuing to try to evolve. How do we tell that story to the consumer and get them to really understand the depth of our brand in just a few seconds?
Yeah, consumers, before when I started shopping online, I would go to the brand's website, do my research. Nowadays, we spend 3 seconds and really scrolling and seeing different. Yeah, that's true. That's a challenge for everyone.
Right. And how much can creative, and copy really share about the brand? It becomes very, very difficult, especially with the, how crowded the consumer goods market is today.
Yeah, and there's so many good brands that have tried to come to the US. They just can't scale. So how do you build a community? Except from some brands already have one, but how do you build a community from scratch? Do you have...
If the brand is worth scaling, let's be honest, there will always be a small community that really has an affection and affinity for the brand. And working with them, really collaborating with your community to expand it is the best way to really gain authenticity for the brand. I think, or people are more likely to purchase if they hear about a product from a friend rather than, hearing it from a celebrity or via social media. And so getting this product on people's feet is critically important to us. And there's no better feet to get it on than people who really deeply love Melissa.
Yeah, and it is a shoe that when you look at it, you're like, wait, what is this? What is this brand? I think it sparks curiosity, right? Because it's just different and smells so good.
Yeah, and we have a lot of products too. We have products that you can wear more day to day. And then we have products that are architecturally so beautiful that, I can be in the MoMA. So I think that it runs deep, but what I know is that everyone deeply, does love the brand.
We are here because of Shop Talk Fall, which is super exciting. I can't wait to see you again in Chicago. We're getting to places, right? And you're going to be talking about reinventing the e-commerce experience of the brand. I don't want you to spoil. I can tell this story here because we're going to watch there. Why do you think it's important for leaders to attend the event?
I think there's going to be a lot of fantastic content, whether that be what I'm participating in or other leaders are participating in for Shop Talk. What I would say is that we're at a point right now where AI and the AI revolution is emerging and upon us, and there's no more important time to understand what's emerging in the marketplace. So for me, I want to walk the floor. I want to understand the new technology that's coming out. I want to know who's utilizing AI to, the most interesting ways possible. And really just evaluate what's out there. As leaders, we need to keep our finger on the pulse of this AI revolution. And there's nothing, I think, more important for us to really understand what's coming.
How is AI supporting the growth of Melissa now? Because 12 times, I guess, it has to play a role, right?
Not yet. And that's what's really exciting about Melissa is that, we've utilized some machine learning elements, or when you're looking at performance marketing, there's, things that are already built into whether that be Meta or Google that we're taking advantage of. Absolutely. But I think this, emergence of AI and Gen AI just really hasn't even started. So I'm beyond, interested to see where really the puck is going in this situation. And I think for leaders to come to Shop Talk, this is probably one of the best years to do it.
I agree. I think the more connected we are with each other in this inflection point of consumption and everything, and it's literally changing the way we act with everything. So I think it's very important to stay connected because we scale brands across 30 countries, which is very impressive. How do you keep learning and evolving to stay ahead as a global leader?
Yeah, again, I'm very intellectually curious. I love cultures. I love technology. I love talking to consumers. I love just learning about brands, about business. And I'm just constantly really trying to involve myself in what's going on in the world and really kind of getting in touch with the zeitgeist of, pop culture and everything else. And I think for me, it's really learning everything I can and expanding on that, really trying to evaluate what the future is going to look like and what those paths look like based on what's going on today is what I'm really excited about.
And how do you lead this intellectually curious that you are? How do you expand that to your team so they can grow as well?
I think for me, first you want to evaluate the competencies that you need for a specific role. But after that, you really can see, is this person an intellectually curious person? Does this person find ways to solve problems? Does this person make things happen instead of things happening to them? Are they really interested in what's going on in the culture? Do they kind of serve that element? And I think people want to work with people that are very similar in that way. And so I really try to find people who really have that fit within the organization. Am I the right leader? Me being intellectually curious, does that spark their imagination or does that frustrate them? So it's really about selecting the team to work for you and then developing them.
Is the inflection point from the consumer perspective? Is the inflection point from the company perspective? It's becoming more AI, everything is automated, it's becoming less human. Mm-hmm. How are you finding recruitment in this time?
It hasn't remarkably changed. I think that AI has been really helpful to evaluate, resumes and CVs that come in initially to kind of self-select like what makes sense for the role and for the company. And I think that's really helpful. I know the last time we put out a role, we received a couple hundred applicants in just days. And part of that is it's a very progressive company and we're very open, especially on the digital side, for a remote workforce, which is a little bit of a superpower right now.
It is.
And
you attract more people for sure.
Yeah, we definitely attract more people. And what I always say is that let's not mistake presence for engagement. And I have a beyond phenomenally engaged team who even on Saturdays and Sundays, always sharing ideas. And they're engaged, but I've also gone to offices where people are in the office and present, but not engaged. And I would much rather take an engaged team. So we do get a lot of people, but that said, we have a lot of people to select from as well. And the candidates are typically great. And if we self-select this type of candidate, it really serves well for our team.
Absolutely. And you are such an accomplished leader. It's so beautiful to see your story and your perspective on growth, both personal and for the business. Who inspires you?
Well, I started my career at Gap. I think we tend to forget how progressive and thoughtful Mickey is as a leader. So even in the early days of Gap, everyone called management by their first names, which was really unheard of. Calling someone, Mickey or Chad or whatnot versus Mr. or Mrs. So-and-so. And I think that was really remarkable, and then we were able to dress casually. Great ideas could come from anywhere. We would really listen to each other.
You didn't have the hierarchy.
Yeah, it wasn't the hierarchy. And back then when I started my career, that was really remarkable. And I think the wisdom that Mickey really shared with the organization has been phenomenal. And I think he continues to share that wisdom out in the business world. And I'm really grateful for that. I think that was a formative experience and just the core of who I am as a leader growing up in that environment. And then today, thinking about Gap 2 decades later, I'm really love Richard Dixon. I think
I'm trying to get him on the show.
Oh my gosh, I would love that. I just think he is a phenomenal leader. I think when they first selected him, we'd seen a lot of leaders at Gap and we're like, oh, okay, another leader. But he was out in the field, just relentlessly meeting the teams, listening to the consumers, hiring Zach Posen immediately, just making wonderful decisions. They solicited some great collaborations with, Colt Gaia and Doen, Love Shack Fancy. And I think what they're doing is so cool and they're going to go through a resurgence. I would love to meet him too, just in the background if you have
I invited, whenever he comes, I invited to come.
I just think he's such the leader for me to just watch and just see what he does. I just am beyond impressed.
And it's so interesting that you mentioned your first leader, because I feel the leader is what actually makes the success of the person. I think it defines a lot of what the person will be. And I struggled to find a good one. But once I found, I was like, oh my God, yes, I can progress. It's so nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too.
And if you could give an advice to someone who is entering a leadership position now in retail and brands, what would it be?
I think follow your own leadership style. I think there's so many books out there. There's so many examples. There's so many people telling you what to do or what to be. I think the more you really follow your own style, you can really kind of slide into what your best leadership style works for you and your team. But I think most importantly is really you do not need to be the smartest person in the room. The way I think about myself is I'm more a conductor of an orchestra. I don't really play any instruments. It's not like I go into Google and start making campaigns. I really try to bring the orchestra together. I really understand what the piece of music is going to sound like at the end. And I really try to just bring everyone together, collaborate, communicate, and drive, the ultimate goal of the business or of the brand. And so I think for me, you don't need to be the one who has all the answers. You just need to ask the right questions, remove the barriers, help the teams communicate and collaborate. And that will really drive a lot of success in your business.
Thank you. This is going to be our last question.
Sure.
You've worked all over the world. How is it to work with Brazilians?
I love it.
What makes it different?
At first, I wasn't sure what to make of it. My favorite story was that Brazilians will never tell you what they think. So the example was, if you're going too fast in a car, someone will say, oh, those trees are going by very quickly, rather than say we're going too fast. So it was a little bit challenging for me because I'm a relatively direct person and I moved from the Netherlands, which the Dutch are known for being direct. So it was a little tough, but what I've really come to absolutely love about Brazil and Brazilians, it is the most warm, creative, inspirational culture. And there's something called the Brazilian way, which Brazilians will get things done. They'll figure it out. They solve problems, incredibly creative. And I just really have learned so much from the culture of you don't need to just think one way. You can really be creative in exploring the way that you think about everything, whether that be business or family or your personal life. So at first, it was a little tricky, and now I'm absolutely enjoying it. And I'm so grateful to have so many Brazilians in my life.
Yeah, there is this book called The Culture Map. It says that Americans are low context. Dutch are the lowest context culture.
Yes.
So it's super direct. Americans are in general low context culture, and Brazilians are super high context. So what we mean, like, we don't necessarily say what we mean. Like, you have to read the whole context to understand why Americans say what they mean. So, yeah, I understand because I did the opposite, right? Like, I came from there to here.
Yes.
So, yeah.
And as a leader, leaders tend to be quite direct. And, I'm not sure that I need a map to kind of figure out what somebody's saying in a meeting. But it's working quite well. And I really enjoy being, an American ambassador for the brand.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure having you here. I'm so happy you're working with Melissa. And I hope next time we talk to each other to be 20 times growth.
Absolutely. Thank you. I loved being here and I appreciate the conversation.